Good morning, everyone. Today's topic it will be acute pancreatitis. The learning objectives for today's class will be the class will be dealt on the basis of these side headings. Initially, we'll start with introduction, coming to the pathophysiology, etiology, clinical approach, differential diagnosis, workup, assessment of severity. One second. Treatment, prognosis, and complications. Yeah. What is acute pancreatitis? Like acute pancreatitis, it's an inflammatory condition of the pancreas characterized by clinically there will be an abdominal pain and biochemically you can see elevated levels of the pancreatic enzymes in the blood. It can be acute pancreatitis or chronic pancreatitis. Acute pancreatitis presents an emergency. Chronic pancreatitis, it's a like chronic disorder. It persists as a chronic disorder. But on and off, you'll be having acute flares. Coming to the pathophysiology, what is the reason for main cause for acute pancreatitis? That is, autodigestion is the primary cause for acute pancreatitis. Autodigestion of the pancreatic substance by inappropriately activated pancreatic enzymes, especially the trypsinogen. Of all these, the initial primary one is the trypsinogen, which will be activated and converted to trypsin. What are the causes? Pathogenesis of acute pancreatitis. It can be at the duct obstruction or the acinar cell injury will be there, and then defective intracellular transport will be there. In the duct obstruction, you will have the scoliolethiasis, ampullary obstruction will be there. Chronic alcoholism also will cause sludge formation. So ductal concretions, what will happen? All the secretions will become stagnant. So it will interstitial edema and impaired blood flow, and it will ultimately cause ischemia, thus causing the acinar cell injury. Coming to the second column, you can see what are the things which can directly cause the acinar cell injury. Alcohol, drugs, trauma, ischemia, viruses. These can directly affect the acinar cells. Release of intracellular proenzymes and lysosomal hydrolysis. So activation of the enzymes. These enzymes always will be in the uh, they'll be in the proenzyme state, inactive state. So these will be activated only once in the intestinal lumen. But here there'll be activation of the early activation of the enzymes within the pancreatic duct and the acinar cells. Defective intracellular transport can be because of the metabolic injury, can be because of alcohol, duct obstruction. All these will cause delivery of the proenzymes to the lysosomal component and intracellular activation of the enzymes. The enzymes which are supposed to be activated in the intestinal lumen will be activated within the pancreatic parenchyma. All these will cause acinar cell injury. Acinar cell injury finally leads to activated enzymes. What are the ultimate manifestations of the activated enzymes? You can see interstitial inflammation and edema. Proteolysis can be there. Fat necrosis will be there. Hemorrhages will be there. All this is the profile of acute pancreatitis. The initial primary enzyme which will be activated will be the trypsinogen. It is converted into trypsin. This activated trypsin will further activate the other proenzymes. It will activate the kallikrein-kinin pathway, and then which will cause coagulation and plasma. And this will cause the edema and inflammation, and it's responsible for thrombosis and hemorrhages. This activated trypsin will activate the protease. So ultimately it will help in proteolysis. It will also activate the lipase, phospholipase A2, which will cause the fat necrosis and coagulation necrosis of the pancreatic parenchyma. Activation of the elastase will cause vascular damage and hemorrhages. Activation of the cytokine pathway will cause systemic manifestations such as ARDS, hypertension. This is the tabular form. Trypsinogen is converted to trypsin, which will activate the kinin system, activation of the coagulation cascade, activation of the phospholipase will also in turn activate the prostaglandins and bradykinins. Lipase activation will cause fat necrosis. This fatty acids and calcium saponification will occur. It will lead to hypocalcemia in turn. Elastase activation will digest the elastic fibers of the of the blood vessels, thin blood vessels, and will cause the capillary leak. Thus, it will cause a hypovolemic shock. Activation of the lysol, it will cause membrane damage and necrosis. Release of the inflammatory mediators into the circulation will cause systemic complications. What are the causes of acute pancreatitis? It can be divided as common causes, uncommon causes, and causes to consider in patients with recurrent bouts, where you are having recurrent attacks of acute pancreatitis without any obvious etiology. What are the common causes of acute pancreatitis? Gallstones, alcohol, hypertriglyceridemia, ERCP, and drugs like azathioprine, 6-mercaptopurine, sulfonamides, estrogens, tetracyclines, valproic acid, uh, 5-aminosalicylic acid, and blunt abdominal trauma. It can be also post-operative. We'll see the percentages of the common causes. Gallstones will account for 30 to 60% of acute 30 to 60% of cases of acute pancreatitis. Alcohol will account for 15 to 30%. Hypertriglyceridemia, mainly we'll be having triglyceride levels more than 1000 milligrams per deciliter. It will account for 1.3 to 3.8%. Where your ERCP cases, post ERCP, people might develop acute pancreatitis in about 5 to 10% of cases. And the next one being the blunt abdominal trauma, post operative, abdominal or non abdominal. And these are the drugs which have been listed earlier. What are the uncommon causes? Can be vascular causes and vasculitis, connective tissue disorders, pancreatic malignancies, pancreatic anatomy, like changes in the anatomy, the periampullary diverticulum, pancreas divisum, hereditary pancreatitis, cystic fibrosis, renal failure, and autoimmune conditions. What are the causes of recurrent pancreatitis? Recurrent attacks of acute pancreatitis without any obvious etiology. You will see an occult disease of the biliary tree or the pancreatic ducts, especially the microlithiasis, the small one, the biliary sludge. Drugs, alcohol abuse, metabolic causes can be hypertriglyceridemia, hypercalcemia, pancreatic malignancy, intraductal papillary mucinous neoplasm, cystic fibrosis, autoimmune, and the last one being the idiopathic. There's something called Atlantia Symposium, which has defined the acute pancreatitis. It can be defined as an acute inflammatory process of the pancreas with variable involvements of other regions or remote organ systems. It is best defined clinically by a patient presenting with two of the following three criteria. First one is the symptoms, such as they'll be having severe epigastric pain consistent with the disease, a serum amylase with a lipase greater than 3 times the upper limit of the normal. More than 3 times the upper limit of the normal is a consideration. The third point being the radiological imaging consistent with the diagnosis, usually CT or the MRI. Out of these two criteria. How do you divide acute pancreatitis? It can be divided into two phases. One is the early phase and the other one is the late phase. Early phase means which is less than 2 weeks. Late phase is beyond 2 weeks. Early phase is characterized by systemic inflammatory response syndrome with or without organ failure. The late phase is usually characterized by the local complications. In the early phase, severity is assessed by the functional or clinical severity scoring systems like the Ransom score or the Glasgow score. In the late phase, where you're having this local complications, it is mainly characterized by the local complications. So, main morphological scoring system, that is the Balthazar scoring system, CT grading, that is Balthazar scoring system. Those are this is the phases of acute pancreatitis. Coming to the severity of acute pancreatitis, it can be divided as mild, moderate, and severe. Mild acute pancreatitis means there will not be any organ failure and there won't be any local complications. Moderately severe acute pancreatitis is local complications may or may not be there, but there is a transient organ failure which lasts for less than 48 hours. Next coming the severe acute pancreatitis. But there'll be persistent organ failure will be there or like impending death. That's more than 48 hours. Persistent organ failure which is presenting for more than 48 hours. This is the revised Atlanta definition of morphological features of acute pancreatitis. What are the definitions? When you say interstitial pancreatitis, a mild form of pancreatitis, acute pancreatitis is interstitial pancreatitis. How do you define interstitial pancreatitis? It is acute inflammation of the pancreatic parenchyma and the peripancreatic tissues, but without recognizable tissue necrosis. The main key point over here is there won't be any tissue necrosis. When do you call? The second column will be the CT criteria. What is the CT criteria to say it is an interstitial pancreatitis? You can see over there. This pancreatic parenchyma is enhanced. That's it. When you give a contrast, no findings of peripancreatic necrosis. When do you call pancreatic necrotizing pancreatitis? Inflammation associated with pancreatic parenchymal necrosis or peripancreatic necrosis. Here, the key point is there is necrosis. So you call it as necrotizing pancreatitis. What do you see in the CT? Lack of peripancreatic parenchymal enhancement by IV contrast or presence of findings of peripancreatic necrosis will be there. What is acute pancreatic fluid collection? This table actually you can get it through get it in your Harrison. Peripancreatic fluid associated with interstitial edematous pancreatitis with no associated peripancreatic necrosis. Here there is no necrosis, but there's just peripancreatic fluid collection is there. Pancreatic pseudocyst. How do you define a pancreatic pseudocyst? An encapsulated, it's a well-defined encapsulated collection of the fluid with a well-defined inflammatory wall, usually outside the pancreas with minimal or no necrosis. This entity usually occurs greater than 4 weeks after the onset of interstitial edematous pancreatitis. And the next one is the acute necrotic collection and the wall of necrosis. How do you define a wall of necrosis? A mature encapsulated collection of pancreatic or peripancreatic necrosis. Wall of necrosis is a well-defined collection of the necrotic material over here with a well-defined inflammatory wall. Usually occurs greater than 4 weeks after onset of the necrotizing pancreatitis. Coming to the clinical features, how do these patients present to you at the hospital? When you take the history, what is the main chief presenting complaint will be an abdominal pain. Severe epigastric tenderness will be the severe epigastric will be complaining of severe epigastric pain. Like some patients, it depends. Some patients in the initial phase may present with mild tolerable pain. So the range will be from mild tolerable pain to severe intolerable pain. It is steady time of pain in the epigastrium. It will be radiated to the back and chest, lower abdominal flanks. Like patient is more comfortable in sitting forward, bending forward position, the pain will be relieved. The patient, if he lies on his back, that is patient is in supine position, the patient will be having severe pain. So bending forward, it will give you relief. What are the aggravating factors? That is supine position and relief forward, that is the knee drop position. Apart from abdominal pain, there will be nausea, vomiting, and abdominal distension can be there. When you examine the patient, what you will find? A patient may have fever, tachycardia will be there. Some patients hypotension and shock. Jaundice, infrequently it's due to edema of the head of the pancreas and compression of the intrahepatic portion of the CBD. Sorry, here it's not intrahepatic, it's intraparenchymal, pancreatic portion of the CBD. Erythematous skin nodules due to subcutaneous fat necrosis. In 10 to 20% of patients, you can have respiratory findings also. You'll have basal creps, basal collapse will be there, and most likely left-sided pleural effusion will be there. Abdominal tenderness and rigidity. Bowel sounds will be diminished. Sometimes patient will have ileus, intestinal. Palpable peripancreatic pseudocyst. In the late stage of the disease, if you're having local complications like a pseudocyst, palpable pancreatic pseudocyst in the upper abdomen. In severe necrotizing pancreatitis, what are the cutaneous manifestations you can see? Cullen's sign, that is the faint. Against the Cullen's sign, you can see the abdomen. Around the umbilicus, there is the discoloration. Ecchymotic lesions are there. That is called Cullen's sign. What is Turner's sign? Again, just below the Turner's sign, you can see the picture over there where there's brown discoloration in the flanks. Fox sign is, you can see the medial aspect of the thigh. There is reddish discoloration. Ecchymotic lesion will be there just below the inguinal ligament. That is called Fox sign. So cutaneous manifestations will be Cullen's sign, Turner's sign, and Fox sign. This is because of the hemorrhagic fluid seeping through the facial planes. Acute hemorrhagic pancreatitis. It is seen in acute hemorrhagic necrotizing or fulminant pancreatitis. Periperitoneal, retroperitoneal hemorrhage will be there. Pathology formed from digested blood. Tracks along the facial plane. So hemorrhagic spots and ecchymosis will be there. In the flanks, it is Gray Turner's sign. Periumbilical, it is the Cullen's sign. And below the inguinal ligament on the medial aspect of the thigh, that is the Fox sign. Coming to the laboratory diagnosis. How do you want to diagnose? Like your primary diagnosis should be through your history. What are the supporting laboratory diagnosis? Your pancreatic enzymes, that is at least more than threefold increase of the amylase and the lipase in the blood. Serum amylase, What's the normal range? 30 to 180 international units per liter. It usually increases within 6 to 12 hours of the onset of the pain. The serum amylase is usually increased on the first day of the symptoms and remains elevated for 3 to 5 days in uncomplicated attacks. Sensitivity is greater than 85%. It may be normal or minimally elevated in fatal pancreatitis during a mild attack or an attack superimposed on chronic pancreatitis, or during recovery from acute pancreatitis, also in hypertriglyceridemia associated pancreatitis. Hyperamylesemia, it's not specific because amylase is increased in other conditions also apart from acute pancreatitis. So what is the most specific enzyme which for elevation you want to see for acute pancreatitis? It is serum lipase. The sensitivity of serum lipase is similar to the serum amylase and is between 85 to 100%. Lipase has a greater specificity than amylase. Serum lipase always is elevated on the first day of illness and remains elevated longer than the serum amylase does. Usually, what is happening here? Serum amylase, it remains elevated for maybe 72 hours or till 4th day. But your lipase is elevated constantly. It remains elevated for more days beyond the serum amylase also. So lipase is specific for pancreatitis. CCK test. Secretin leads to increased output of pancreatic juice and bicarbonate. CCK leads to increased output of pancreatic enzymes. Sensitive enough to detect the occult disease. Involves a duodenal intubation of fluoroscopy, only role in acute or chronic pancreatitis. It doesn't have a role in an acute, first episode of an acute pancreatitis. Patient is a chronic pancreatitis patient and you're having repeated attacks of acute pancreatitis, then this test plays a role. Other pancreatic enzymes includes phospholipase A2, trypsinogen, carboxyl ester lipase, carboxypeptidase A, polypase, elastase, and ribonuclease. None alone or in combination are better than serum amylase or lipase. The best specific one will be the lipase. What are the other tests you'll be seeing? Your total counts will be elevated. Hematocrit of more than 44, usually it indicates poor prognosis. Serum creatinine and serum electrolytes have to be monitored. Liver enzymes may also increase. Like as you know, you have seen jaundice. Serum bilirubin is also increasing. MCV will increase in alcoholic patients. Serum triglyceride levels increase in acute, if it is hypertriglyceridemia, induced acute pancreatitis, serum triglyceride levels will increase, but also it's increasing with alcohol use, uncontrolled diabetes or defective triglyceride metabolism. What are the radiological findings in acute pancreatitis? Radiological investigations, chest X-ray or X-ray erect abdomen. X-ray, like most common thing will be your basal atelectasis and most common will be a pleural effusion. You can check for a left pleural effusion. Rule out other diagnosis, especially for perforation. Here in acute pancreatitis, you may have occasionally dilated, distended bowel loops. That is because of intestinal ileus. But you have to rule out other causes. As is an acute abdomen, you have to rule out other causes like perforation. Ultrasound you want to do to rule out if you want to find out if any gallstones are there. A CT contrast CT. It will help in severity and prognostication. Allows estimation of presence and extent of pancreas to check if there is any pancreatic necrosis. Endoscopic ultrasound or MRCP and or MRCP are better than CT for choriodocolithiasis. What is severe acute pancreatitis? What are the risk factors? Who are more prone to develop severe disease? Age more than 60 years, obesity, that is BMI more than 30, and any comorbid diseases. These are the risk factors for severity. What are the markers of severity, like at admission of within 24 hours? You have to check to to know if this patient is a high-risk patient. He may develop a severe disease. So it's defined by presence of two or more criteria, that is core temperature less than 36 or more than 38, heart rate more than 90, respiratory rate more than 20, or PCO2 less than 32, total counts more than 12,000 or less than 4,000, or 10% of bands are there, Apache 2 score, hemo concentration, hematocrit more than 44, Admission blood urea nitrogen is greater than 22 milligram per deciliter. BSAP score, that is B stands for blood urea nitrogen more than 25 milligrams per deciliter. I stands for impaired mental status. S says greater than or equal to 2 or 2 of the 4%. Age is greater than 60 years, and if pleural effusion is there, organ failure is there, cardiovascular, coming to systolic BP, you're having hypertension or you're having tachycardia, pulmonary PaO2 less than 60 mm of Hg, renal serum creatinine more than 2 milligram percent. Markers of severity during hospitalization. Till now, we have dealt with admission or the first 24 hours. These are the things. If you find these, like patient will high chance to develop a severe disease. During hospitalization, if there is persistent organ failure or if there is pancreatic necrosis, it is a severe disease. The same thing, the same tableau from the second column, markers of severity, that is represented over here. What is the Atlanta criteria for severe acute pancreatitis? Organ failure, that is hypertension, shock you're having. You're having a shock, hypovolemic shock, or pulmonary insufficiency, that is PaO2 less than or equal to 60 milligrams of mercury, renal failure of serum creatinine greater than 2, GI bleed, that is greater than 500 ml in loss in 24 hours, local complications like necrosis, abscess, or pseudocyst. What is the other prognostic criteria for prognostication? Ideally, we want to see NAM-gallstone pancreatitis. What are the things you want to check upon admission? Upon admission, you want to check criteria, like this is criteria score of till 3, it is mild pancreatitis. More than that is severe pancreatitis. Upon admission, you want to check Frye criteria, and during the initial 48 hours, there are 6 criteria. What are the 5 criteria upon admission you want to check? Age more than 55 years, total counts greater than 16,000, blood glucose greater than 200 milligrams per deciliter, LDH levels more than 350 international units per liter, and ST levels more than 250 international units per liter. These are the 5 criteria. Each point, each factor will have, if it is positive, it will have 1 point score. In the initial 48 hours, what are the things you want to check? If there is any decrease, fall in hematocrit greater than 10%, blood urea nitrogen increase of more than 5 milligram per deciliter, serum calcium fall, that is less than 8 milligram per deciliter, PO2 less than 60 mm of Hg, serum base deficit is more than 4 milliclins per liter, fluid sequestration greater than 6 liters. All this each will have 1 point score. So your ransom score of less than 3 will be mild disease. The other main differences which are found in this in the gallstone pancreatitis are the age and the total counts. Age will be greater than 670 and total counts more than 18,000. Severity index in acute pancreatitis. How do you grade severity? Like this is the initial one is the grade of acute pancreatitis, that is the CT based. That is the Balthazar score. The second one is the degree of the pancreatic necrosis. You combine these together, that is called the CT severity index. That is CTSI. That's a count of Balthazar, that you will add the Balthazar plus the necrotic score. That is the CT severity index. What is the Balthazar score? Balthazar score will range from 0 to 4 points. Like this is all the CT based classification. Grade A will be normal pancreas, you have 0 points for that. Grade B will be pancreatic enlargement alone, focal or diffuse with contour irregularities and inhomogeneous attenuation, you have 1 point. Grade C will be a B along with peripancreatic inflammation, that will have 2 points. And grade D will be a C with a peripancreatic fluid collection, means apart there is no, along with inflammation there is fluid collection. Grade E will be grade D plus 2 or more peripancreatic or retroperitoneal fluid collections or gas collections, that will have 4 points. Degree of pancreatic necrosis. If there is no necrosis, it is 0 score. Necrosis of less than 33% of the pancreas, it is 2 score. Necrosis of 33 to 50% will be 4 points. And necrosis of greater than 50% of the pancreas will be 6 points. So CT severity index total score will be it will be ranging from 0 to 10. That is the 4 points in the Balthazar score and the 6 points scoring in the pancreatic necrosis score. So the CTSI 0 to 2 will be a mild pancreatitis, 4 to 6 will be moderate pancreatitis, and more than 6, like mortality is high, 100%, almost 100% mortality if a grade of more than 6. This is a CT finding. The arrow marks will show you diffuse swelling of the pancreas with peripancreatic inflammation changes. This is the necrosis. Like this is the area you can, that arrow points surrounding peripancreatic inflammation is there. Necrosis was estimated to involve less than 30% of the pancreas. What is the management of acute pancreatitis? The most important primary goal of acute pancreatitis is fluids resuscitation. Here you are having the fluid sequestration, like large amount of fluid. There is capillary leak. So all the fluid will be going from the vascular compartment. It is going into the interstitial spaces. There's a lot of fluid loss is there. So most important is the intravenous hydration. Uh, Apart from that intravenous hydration, what are the things you want to take care of the pain and also to decrease the pain? The patient is usually kept NBM until there is any nausea, vomiting has subsided. Nasogastric like RT insertion is ideally not advised for mild pancreatitis. If it is severe pancreatitis where you are having the intestinal ileus or there's any intractable vomiting, then you will put an RT aspirate, continuous RT aspiration, because you want to remove the gastric secretions. You have to be very vigilant. You have to check if patient is developing any signs of going into signs of organ failure. Patient is developing hypotension, or you have to keep a watch on the urinary output. Tachypnea should not be assumed due to abdominal pain because you have to monitor the oxygen saturation. ABG, if required, has to be done. You have to check for hypoxemia. Any patient who exhibits signs of early dysfunction should be immediately transferred to ICU. The goal is to decrease the hematocrit for fluid resuscitation. Requirements of a 70 kg person during the first 48 hours, like it should be at least 250 to 300 ml per hour for the first 48 hours. The rate of volume replacement is more important during the first 24 hours, and a rise in hematocrit has been shown to correlate closely with severe disease. Maintaining adequate intravascular volume in patients with severe disease may require 5 to 10 liters of isotonic saline daily for the first several days. How do you like if patient is developing hypoxemia, then give supplemental oxygen. ARDS is the most known respiratory complication of acute pancreatitis. It generally occurs between second to the seventh day of the illness. Chest X-ray may show like alveolar infiltrates will be there. If patient is very tachypneic and unstable hemodynamics, then patient needs to be ventilated. Proactive ventilation is also required. Cardiac complications include congestive heart failure, myocardial infarction, cardiac dysrhythmia, cardiogenic shock. If hypertension persists even after appropriate fluid resuscitation, then ideally intravenous dopamine may help to maintain the systemic blood pressure because it will not impair the circulation, microcirculation of the pancreas. So dopamine is preferred. What are the metabolic complications? Here mostly you will have the sugars will be fluctuating. So hyperglycemia is known to occur in these. So you have to manage with insulin. Serum ionized calcium is also decreasing. So as the ionized calcium is decreasing, the neuromuscular irritability will be there. If hypomagnesemia coexists, first the hypomagnesemia has to be restored, and then the calcium also has to be restored. Then the neuromuscular irritability will come down. There's no role for prophylactic antibiotics unless otherwise the CT shows necrosis. Ideally, the CT is also not preferred in the first 72 hours because like beyond the 72 hours only, the necrotic wall will be well defined. So you can see the extent of the necrosis. So if there is necrosis only, then there's an indication for antibiotics. What antibiotics do? Imbipenem, fluoroquinolones, metronidazole are the drugs that achieve the highest inhibitory concentration in the pancreatic tissues. So there is no current recommendation for prophylactic antibiotics. It's not there. Endoscopy. Like if there is any gallstones, impacted gallstone is there, then you will do an endoscopy to remove the retrieval of the gallstone. Like it will improve the outcome in the pancreatitis because the blockage is removed. Severe acute gallstone pancreatitis with ascending cholangitis is an indication for urgent ERCP. What is the nutrition? The clear fluid diet should be given on day 3 to 6 and regular diet from 5 to 7. The decision to reintroduce oral intake is done by resolution of the abdominal pain, hunger, organ dysfunction if recent has improved. In severe pancreatitis, in which much longer restriction of oral fluid need, total parenteral nutrition must be maintained by liquid infusion. What are the other drugs you want to give? Gebexet mesylate is a pancreatic protease inhibitor in acute pancreatitis. Like usually, there's no 90-day mortality benefit is not observed in this. Anti-secretory hormones, somatostatin or its synthetic analog octreotide, have failed to show evidence of the efficacy. Is there any role of surgery in acute pancreatitis? Cholecystectomy should be performed as soon as the patient has recovered and the acute inflammatory process has subsided. The second potential role for surgery in pancreatitis is to debride the pancreatic nephron, that is necrosectomy. So there's all two roles. One is if there is any gallbladder obstruction, you initially you'll remove the ERC, you'll be doing the ERCP and you'll be retrieving the stone. If there's a recurrent, then you'll go for recurrent gallstones, you'll go for cholecystectomy after the acute pancreatitis episode has subsided. The second indication will be the necrosectomy. What are the complications? And finally, this is the last topic, last side heading for today's class, that will be complication. Complications can be divided into local complications and systemic complications. What are the local complications you see in acute pancreatitis? You'll have necrosis, and it can be sterile or infected. Pancreatic fluid collections, that is pancreatic abscess, pancreatic pseudocyst, pancreatic ascites. Involvement of the contiguous organs by necrotizing pancreatitis. Massive intraperitoneal hemorrhage can occur, thrombosis of the blood vessels, and obstructive jaundice. These are the law. This is a tabular form. It will be easy for you to remember in this way. Local will be necrosis, walled off necrosis, pancreatic fluid collections, pancreatic pseudocyst, disruption of the main duct, involvement of contiguous organs by necrotizing pancreatitis, thrombosis of the blood vessels, splenic vein and the portal vein, pancreatic enteric fistula, bowel infarction, and obstructive jaundice. Next, coming to the heading of systemic complications. Systemic complications means it can involve the lungs. In the lungs, what it will be involving? It can cause a left pleural effusion. It can cause a basal collapse, mediastinal fluid, pneumonitis, ARDS, hypoxemia. Cardiovascular, it will cause hypotension, hypovolemia, non-specific STT changes in the ECG, simulating myocardial infarction, pericardial effusion. What are the hematological complications of acute pancreatitis? They can be disseminated intravascular coagulation, gastrointestinal hemorrhage, peptic ulcer disease, erosive gastritis, hemorrhagic pancreatic necrosis with erosion into major blood vessels, portal vein thrombosis and splenic vein thrombosis, variceal hemorrhages. It can cause renal failure, oliguria, azotemia, ATN, acute tubular necrosis. What are the metabolic complications? Hyperglycemia, hypertriglyceridemia, hypocalcemia, encephalopathy, and sudden blindness. The sudden blindness seen in acute pancreatitis is Purshas retinopathy. That is PURTSCHERS, Purshas retinopathy. Central venous system, psychosis, fat emboli, fat necrosis, subcutaneous tissues, erythematous nodules. In 10 to 20% of the patients, you will have these erythematous nodules. Bone involvement and miscellaneous. These are the things which are depicted in the which are given in the table, in this table. This also you can get from Harrison. Okay. Like your take-home message will be your phases of acute pancreatitis. That is the early phase and the late phase. Your severity of acute pancreatitis. What are the markers of severity of acute pancreatitis? In the first 24 hours or upon admission, the first 24 hours of admission. That table also you'll get it from your Harrison. And then the next point will be like what are the scoring systems for acute pancreatitis? That is the Ranson scoring system, CT severity index. These two are important, and the Apache 2 score. And the other one will be your management. How do you manage a case of acute pancreatitis? Day in and day out, you'll be seeing acute pancreatitis cases in your ward. This is the most common GI presentation. because alcohol is more preponderant. And what are the complications? What are the complications of acute pancreatitis? That's also another thing I want to highlight over here is there's no role for prophylactic antibiotics in acute pancreatitis unless otherwise there's a necrosis. There's no other take-home message will be here. There's no role for uh, uh, what is it? Early CT unless otherwise you are suspecting other cause for acute abdomen, because your ideally CT should be done after 72 hours where the level of extent of necrosis will be well defined. Okay, this ends the session over here. You want to ask any questions? Your acute pancreatitis is an essay question. Apart from being an essay question, that is day in and out, you see it in the wards. It is very important. As a house surgeon, also you are expected to manage this case, receive this case, identify the case in the casualty. Because unless otherwise you think of it in the casualty at an emergency, unless otherwise you think of an acute pancreatitis, routinely you won't send a serum lipase for that for any patient presenting with abdominal pain. I'm open to take questions if you have any. I'll just display the tabular forms once again, which are important. Yeah. This flowchart is important because if you remember this flowchart, you can write the entire pathophysiology of acute pancreatitis. The main principal key factor being autodigestion, which you have to remember. Autodigestion of the pancreas is early activation of the trypsinogen in the pancreatic parenchyma. It has to be ideally, these enzymes are in the precursor forms. These have to be activated in the intestinal lumen. But there is early activation of all these enzymes, and so there is autodigestion. The next one is what are the common causes of acute pancreatitis have to be remembered. Gallstones is the most important. These first four where you have written the percentages are the most important, and the last one, the trauma. Blunt abdominal trauma also causes acute pancreatitis. And this phase of acute pancreatitis classification, early phase and late phase, has to be remembered. And like this clinical features and examination is important for you to recognize, because as a house surgeon you need to pick up a case of acute pancreatitis. Unless otherwise you know what is acute pancreatitis, you can't you will not put it as your DD in an acute abdomen case. Serum lipase is specific, and this tabular form is important. Severe acute, what is when do you define it as severe acute pancreatitis? What are the markers of severity? And another important one is a ransom prognostic criteria. Ransom score of 0 to 3, mild pancreatitis, and more than that is severe pancreatitis. And the next one is the CT severity index, CTSI. That is a value of addition of Balthazar score to necrotic score. It's score of 0 to 10. A 0 to score of 2 to 4 is mild, 4 to 6, 0 to 4, 2 is mild, 4 to 6 is moderate, and more than 6, 100% mortality. Management, intra-IV fluid resuscitation is the most important point. The patient is a mild disease and the patient is the pain has decreased. Early enteral feeding has to be advised. RT insertion is not advised as long as you don't suspect any ileus or patient is having, or it is a severe acute pancreatitis. Continuous RT aspirate is ideally not advised for a mild case. The range of acute pancreatitis profile will be from a mild interstitial pancreatitis to a fulminant pancreatitis, fulminant necrotizing pancreatitis. Fluid resuscitation. In the first 2 days, you might require very high quantity of fluids. That is, you may require 5 to 10 liters per day. That is why your hourly IV fluid rate you are advising us 250 to 300 ml when the patient is not having any cardiac compromise earlier. If the cardiac output is ejection fraction is good. Metabolic complications, your serum blood sugar levels have to be managed with insulin. If there is ionized calcium is low, you have to correct the calcium levels, and if there is any hypomagnesemia also has to be corrected. No role for prophylactic antibiotics. Early enteral nutrition is advised in the case of mild acute pancreatitis. Role of surgery only in 2 cases, cholecystectomy and also if there is necrosectomy. And then comes the local complications and the systemic complications. Usually these peripancreatic fluid collections, that pseudocystic will also, it will form in, these all come in a late phase of late phase of pancreatitis. And these 2 tables are from Harrison. You can get it over there. Okay, that ends the session over here. And if there are no more questions, you have any doubts, you can put it in the chat box. Inflammation. Someone has asked me a question, why there is pleural effusion and acute pancreatitis. Here, what I want to tell you is there is left-sided pleural effusion. Why? Because your pancreas, it's extending, it is irritating, it's under your left diaphragm, like it is towards your left side. That will cause mainly, it's because of inflammation. And also there's a capillary membrane leak is there. So you'll be having mostly left-sided pleural effusion. Can it occur on the right side? They have asked me, can it occur on the right side? Occurring on the right side also, like in the delayed phases where you're having it as a systemic complication, where all your third space loss is there. Initially you'll be having your left sided, but if you're having your ARDS and then completely like you are losing all the proteins, the proteolysis is occurring, and also the fat necrosis is occurring, then in late stage of systemic complications. Okay, there are no more questions, then we'll end the session. Okay.